Now, NATO should be happy, says Turkish President Erdogan. That's in regards to the recent purchase of Russia's S-400 defense system. Now, the statement that will surely throw insult to injury, as the U.S. and its NATO allies have made mention time and time again they do not favor this weapons deal, is between the Turks and the Russians. The U.S. has even gone as far as to threaten Turkey with sanctions, which they have yet to take action on. So for more on this, I'm joined by Daniel McAdams, the Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us.
Hi, Scotty.
Okay, so in this situation, did Turkey just call President Trump's bluff?
I think absolutely they did, and I think nobody in Washington believed that Turkey was not bluffing for these past several years. Everyone thought Turkey was bluffing. I think this is what happens when you believe your own rhetoric. They would not dare to oppose us. They would not dare to not do what we say, and they did dare, and it's having huge consequences. Scotty, I think this is a pivotal moment in history. I don't think the importance of this moment can be overstated too much.
Well, and you say that, but, you know, the question is, has Turkey really been an ally to the United States? We had strained relations for a while. And what happens if Turkey pulls the ultimate card right now, which is threatened U.S. access to the Incirlik base?
Well, that is a big deal, and Turkey is an important ally. Turkey, don't forget, has the largest army in NATO aside from the United States. It's an enormous army, it's an enormous power. Its geostrategic location is extremely important for the U.S. If the U.S. no longer uses Incirlik, think about how the U.S. has isolated itself in the region. Even some of the neocons are talking about using Erbil in northern Iraq. That's not going to happen. They're not going to be having an air base there aimed toward Iran with Baghdad sitting the way it is. So the U.S. is in more of a bind here than it really thinks it is right now. Although the mood right now in Washington is sanction them, take away the F-35s. The rhetoric is really being dialed up.
Well, and the rhetoric is from the White House today that they actually had a sanctions package, but they haven't announced it, which I find to be very interesting. But does this mean, because of this purchase, that Turkey is now an official ally of Russia?
Well, this is why this whole sanctions issue is really kind of a catch-22 of bad policy. Because if Trump comes back with heavy, hard sanctions, he's pushing Turkey further into the camp of Russia and Iran. Let's not forget that Turkey and Iran have had several meetings this year trying to smooth over their differences. However, if Trump comes up with very light sanctions, then there's the whole issue, well then, why do we have these sanctions anyway? These sanctions were put in place over two very bogus things. One is Obama's policy toward Ukraine, the regime change, and the other is the since disproven assertion that Russia meddled in the elections. Both of these things are lies. The basis of the sanctions are completely baseless. So really, it's a catch-22 for Trump.
Absolutely, and it's a flexing of muscle, which comes on the third-year anniversary of the failed coup attempt there in Turkey. Do you think this has anything to do with Erdogan and his trying to flex his muscle and show he isn't controlled or manipulated or even pressured by any other country?
Well, he's shown himself to be a very independent actor, although he maintains good relations with the U.S. to this point. But let's not also forget that he's key to the U.S.-Syria policy right now, which is also quite boneheaded. But if Erdogan goes off the rails here and starts dealing with this Kurdish problem in Syria the way he'd like to, that means that the U.S. has no more proxies left, and the ongoing U.S. policy in Syria is in serious danger. So Erdogan is holding a lot more cards than Washington really understands right now.
Well, and I think that's probably, as you mentioned, it's probably why there's a little bit of a panic in this, because they really do, they're kind of like Trump. They don't know to predict which ally he's going to go with next. Going forward, though, you mentioned Syria, and how important is it right now in the conversations with Syria, as President Trump saying he's going to pull his troops out, if Erdogan is thinking, obviously with all the new military equipment, of building up and strengthening his presence in the area?
Well, it's clearly he has an opportunity now to do that. He's made some moves toward Assad in Syria to make nice. I mean, Turkey is in a position to be a real regional powerhouse, even more so than now. And this whole idea that Turkey, the second largest army in NATO, is purchasing military equipment from NATO's supposed greatest enemy, Russia, that also goes to show what kind of a hot air balloon this whole thing is, the whole purpose of NATO these days.
Well, and that's a very good point there. As we're seeing alliances, I mean, you're seeing China and Germany doing military exercises together. You're seeing the Silk Road going through Russia, connecting Europe to China through Russia. You know, the enemy of my enemy, it's interesting to see how the definition of what is the enemy right now, because you can say on one hand we need to make, you know, Russia or Syria or Turkey our enemy. On the other hand, you're seeing deals with our allies with it. So does that kind of justify right now why everything is kind of a bit of a mess right now, and all these different trade deals that are being negotiated, also security deals being negotiated, where you don't know where anybody stands with anyone anymore?
Well, the foreign policy of Washington has failed. It's failing. It continues to fail because what our foreign policy should be is engagement, not this ridiculous foreign policy of sanctioning everybody inside. Well, we're applying new sanctions. Other countries are getting together and doing business. They're bypassing the U.S. The U.S. is becoming more and more irrelevant on the world stage, ironically, because of its own doing, its own policies.
Well, I really appreciate you. It'd be interesting to see how this goes with NATO going forward, and if NATO takes full action against Turkey, or if Turkey says, you know what, I don't need you guys. I want to get along with everyone. Well, it's interesting how you define get along. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.